Well, welcome to GRC205. If you're looking for crawl, walk, run, you're in the right place. Today we're going to be talking about how to accelerate your security maturity. I'm Chad Lawrence. I'm a security delivery manager here at AWS in the professional services department. This is my colleague Justin, and he is a professional services consultant. And we're here today to talk to you about what we've learned working side by side with customers as they try to mature their cloud security model, and tell you what things that we want to bring to you and let you know that we learned in the trenches to help you accelerate your maturity model. So kind of starting with a quick agenda, we're going to stick to our crawl, walk, run theme. And really, we want to set up a lot of setup up front, right? One of the keys to success in the cloud is planning ahead, putting these pieces in place. Saying all that, you may already be into your cloud journey. You may look at some of this and say, whoa, I didn't do those pieces. That's okay. That's part of the iteration of the cloud. But we're going to talk about this is the best practice for moving forward quickly and for having success, but it looks different for everybody. So adapt as you need to, grab the pieces you want. I kind of want to introduce our style too. Because everybody's going to be at a different spot in this maturity model, there's going to be a slide that resonates with you more than some of the others. So we've put up QR codes in the corners for a lot of these. So if you see something that really resonates with you, you can just go ahead and grab it there. We also have a full reference at the back of the deck that's going to be available in about 2 weeks here. So hopefully that will give you all the resources you want, because we're going to cover the whole piece end to end, starting with planning. Really, we want to get that planning. We want to talk about what does planning look like? How do you figure out your scope? How do you figure out those pieces? Once you get a basic plan in place, then we're going to talk about the next step of crawling. And that's really how are you going to lay that framework? Again, in a perfect world, which very few of us get to work in, you would lay your security framework out before you ever moved anything into the cloud. There's lots of other models we run into in the field other than that. But just know that would be the ideal model, right? The other model is once you get anything deployed, even if you haven't put an application in, we want to start shifting left our mentality, which means we want to start assessment the minute we even build our security infrastructure and start building in some of that discipline. And that's going to take us through the crawl phase. Then we're going to kind of start talking about walk. And the very first time you walk, it's really going to be operationalizing, right? How do you change your model, your people, your technology, your processes to map to the cloud? And what does that look like? And what are some of the catches with that? Once you're in the cloud, once you operationalize, then it gets into this maturing, this tuning, and how do you measure? And that's really one of the keys that you're going to hear all the way through this is we want you to be able to measure your progress. How close am I to good? How far away am I from bad, right? I need to know what good looks like. I need to know what bad looks like. I need to know where I am in that process. And so I need to consistently have metrics and measurements I'm measuring against. Once you have all that baseline built, then we get to the run, right? The run is, I would say, 80% of what you see today at reInvent, right? We're showing you all the cool things you could do in security. And quite honestly, there are so many things in security in the cloud that you can do that you've always dreamed of doing on site, right? There's so much more flexibility. And so we want you to dream big. And that's part of this last phase is how can I begin to bring together, how can I stitch these pieces together? How can I add automation and remove people from the process so that my high value people are doing high value work? And so we'll talk about that in the run phase. So the plan, right? And I have to start with the required model, right? We all know this model. We see it on every slide deck. I know it really is important though, right? I'd want to set your mindset. This is a mindset in the cloud. It's a completely different mindset than on premise. The cycle spins a lot faster, right? And you iterate a lot quicker and you have a lot more flexibility to do so. So it really comes down to, yeah, we're going to walk you through this, and you may be at the mature phase and go, oh my gosh, I saw some things there. I want to go back to planning and maybe take a risk approach, or I want to go back to planning, take an architecture approach. That's fine. We keep on working through this model. You can see I actually changed operationalize to manage on the bottom here, because when you repeat the model, you're not going to operationalize over and over, right? By the time you get through the second cycle, you're going to be managing and you're going to be tweaking those management processes. So the very first piece is like every other project you've ever done, you have to define your scope. Not everyone realizes how dramatically your scope can change in the cloud. So we're going to talk a little bit about that. We're going to talk about the different models and approaches. If you don't know much about AWS, we're going to give you 1,000 options. That doesn't mean you have to do all 1,000. We build to the corner case. One of those hopefully fits your corner case pretty closely. But we're going to give you lots of options. You don't have to choose them all. The next piece that we're going to talk about is planned outcomes. Right? If you're going to measure your progress, you actually have to think about your planned outcomes in the planning phase, right? So you can measure, are we progressing in the direction we're intending to go? That is a risk in the cloud. You start moving so quickly, you go, wait, what are we moving towards, right? And so sometimes some of you may find yourself, hey, we need to step back and really figure out what are we trying to move towards. But then back to that thinking model, right? You have to be willing to iterate. So going back to that mindset, iterate, 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 right? And you can iterate on all of these in parallel too. It's not a serial connection, right? So you have to keep that mindset in the cloud, because we're going to be iterating, and it's going to constantly be giving you more opportunities to iterate, but may also help you identify gaps where, oh, they introduced this service, they made this tweak, they made this enhancement. I don't need these processes anymore. Those have been replaced by technology. So keep your eye open, you stay connected to the flow, and continue to iterate. Last of all, please forgive us if we've ever thrown up a colored tile rainbow slide of like our 250 security services. It's the most overwhelming slide in the world for me, right? And that's what they threw up when I came into AWS. Again, we're building to the corner case. You're never going to use all those services. However, we're hoping that 10 or 12 of those services are exactly what you need. So don't start with trying to pick out which one of these tiles you need. Start with your plan, and that will begin to drive you towards where you should be going. So with that, let's get into the scope. On our security scope, there's kind of 3 players in the cloud space, right? There's you, there's us, and there's our partners that we all work with, right? And you don't have to read the details on this, so don't try. It's part of a progression, right? But the idea is that there's security of the cloud and security in the cloud. If you've been to an AWS presentation, you've probably heard that pitch before, right? That we're going to secure that underlying infrastructure. You own securing and protecting your data. One of the fun things about what we do in ProServe is we actually try to help you secure your part of the data, right? And so that's what this is going to be focused on. However, you need to be involved early in your cloud strategies. And so one of the reasons why is depending on how your company decides to modernize or not modernize your infrastructure has a huge impact on you as a security professional and what you have to secure. So the further abstracted you get, the more modernized your infrastructure get, the smaller the footprint and scope that you have to control and secure, and the more that shifts back to AWS. So containers is one of the examples where you begin to shift some of that responsibility for the back end. But the ultimate model is serverless, right? Because serverless is going to shift the most responsibility back to AWS and leave you the least amount to try to secure. And I know serverless sounds scary, but there's a lot of tools out there to kind of help give you visibility and understand what that is. But from a security professional standpoint, right? When you take a database, you're trying to secure a network, you're trying to secure hardware, you're trying to secure an operating system, you're trying to patch all those, and you're trying to patch the database. You're managing all those. When you go to a managed database, serverless, all that goes away. Now you're just talking about how do I secure access to the data in this database that is mine, right? And so us old OSI model people, right? You've shifted yourself way up to the top of the stack and dropped the rest into AWS's responsibility. So be aware of that. The responsibility is not static, and you want to be involved early because obviously your time, energy, and costs that you're going to put into this infrastructure is going to be driven by what cloud architectures they choose. So models, again, lots of models. We're AWS. I'm going to kind of highlight 3 big ones that we find really valuable. And we find customers tend to gravitate to one of these models. We have an architecture approach, a maturity model approach, and a business objective approach. And I'm going to deep dive into these, but what you need to understand is what helps you determine which one you want to go to, right? First of all, your audience. Your architecture approach probably is not what you as a CISO want to report to your board of directors, right? An architecture approach is really helpful if you're presenting an architecture committee, if you're working with architects, if you're working with change management, if you're kind of in those pieces where people need to see, hey, what's my big picture? Your business process also, right? Depending on the business process, if you're presenting to the board, that's probably going to look different than if you're presenting to change management. Also, your overall goals and outcomes for what you're presenting, right? You may be looking for, hey, I need a very specific model that guarantees me a solid foundation for compliance. That may drive you to a different model than another one. Last of all, you don't have to choose just one model. You may choose a blend of all 3, right? But it's important to understand kind of the different approaches you might take. So let's walk through those real quick. The first is the architecture approach. We have a security reference architecture built by ProServe in our experience and all our customers combined into, in a perfect world, what would our security model look like? Again, none of you are going to be a perfect world, so you're going to have to adapt that, right? You're going to have to adapt that to your organization. But it gives you a blueprint. And so sometimes if you're a very building-focused company, having a blueprint helps you set that end sight goal. This is where I want to be, right? Blueprints work really well because they align with compliance frameworks. They also help tie you back into that earlier scope slide, right? Where I'm saying you need to be involved earlier. The people that are building out your architecture and defining your cloud strategy, they're probably going to be looking at the best guidance, our cloud adoption framework, our well-architected framework, and this directly ties to that. And so it helps you speak cloud, right? If you're trying to talk to your cloud center of excellence or your CTO or whoever's driving cloud in your organization. So this model is really nice that way because you get some of those bridges. The disadvantage, it's a pretty technical model, right? In fact, I parsed it down pretty small here. You're just getting a corner of it because it's a nice big architecture design. But again, I'm never going to show this to my board, right? So another model, and this model is probably where we gravitate to as security professionals. It's a maturity model, right? I want to know, how do I drive down the risk the quickest? Where do I get my big wins? How do I make sure that I am moving the needle? And what steps do I need to take, right? Like, what security piece do I put in first? And so I love this maturity model that we recently released this year. Just does a really good job from a very risk-centric approach, how I can drive down my risk in my organization. Obviously, this resonates with security directors and CISOs and those kind of audiences. The disadvantage is this particular model is still not business focused, right? They probably don't care how cool your security is when they're trying to figure out how to stand up the database that supports your company, right? That's the reality. So what's the synergy? What's the answer to not having a business model? The answer is to take the same approach that some of those frameworks were giving us from the CAF and the well-architected framework, and that is defining business objectives. So I'm going to give you an example because that's kind of vague, right? So I'm wanting to work some security in the IAM space. Why do I want to do IAM security? Because I want it to be more secure. Why does the business want me to do IAM security? What is my CIO interested in? What is my business person interested in, right? They're interested in, hey, can you help me accelerate standing up new environments and adding new users? I want to do that instantaneous, right? The business always wants it instantaneous. Right? Good rule of thumb. So how do I do that as a CISO, as a security architect? How do I step back? How would I enable you to move that quickly? Well, I want 100% visibility, right? I think that's all of our first answer. So visibility. I want to measure against best practice to make sure I'm not doing anything criminally stupid, right? I want to make sure that I am consistently driving down risk and I have a way to measure that I'm making progress. So you put those together and you have this business objective that I'm going to enable you to accelerate provisioning of new users' environments by automating that visibility and measurements against best practices. This is a statement that hopefully resonates with a CISO, with a board of directors, with your business, but also says, hey, there's a give and take, right? If we're gonna turn everything on in an instant, I need these things as your security person to make sure our business is healthy. The value of this is it's really easy to cost justify, right? So if you're trying to explain the cost justification of your security, it's really helpful that way. It's really easy to tie the business, and the measurements are defined up front. The disadvantage, one, is time consuming. You have to think, you have to sit down and understand what the business wants and figure out how that ties to what you're trying to deliver as security. And it's pretty hard to give this. You would have some very angry engineers if you handed this to them and told them this is their scope of work, right? So it's not technical guidance. There's another layer underneath of the technical objectives you would have to achieve to meet this business objective. So with that, you kind of have those three models. You say, okay, I have a plan. What do I do next? You got to build your framework. And we have done a lot of work to help with that and to automate that. We have a product called Control Tower. Control Tower is not the right way, it's just the easy way. You may have a lot of business needs that make that not the easy way for your business. So the idea is you want a pre-configured environment that's secure and scalable on a multi-account level, right? And that you can measure against best practices. So maybe as a security person, you don't care how you get there as long as you get to that objective, right? Control Tower just happens to be the easy one that we roll up in a package for you. So you want that multi-account management. You want federated access, right? So you don't want to have every account controlled with a different access policy and a different federation. You want that all centralized. So that's one of the things that this is going to do for you. It allows all the board accounts to be vended, authenticated, federated back to your home directories, whatever meets your security requirements. Also, this is what enables your central log archive. It's kind of a big point because this is what keeps you from having those blind spots in the cloud. Everything after this, if you haven't turned on the logs, you're not going to get a whole lot of value from, right? So again, this is why this is a baseline. You get those pieces in place so that you have what you need going forward. And not only do you have the logging, but you have audit accounts where you can audit across, right? And so you can meet whatever compliance requirements you have. So you can see Control Tower doesn't actually have any business value yet, right? This is your secure data center in the cloud that you're building, right? You're building, I actually like what we used to call it, landing zone. You're building a landing zone for these apps to come land in. And so this is the ideal way to do it. It manages all the provisioning from the account down to the end user. And you begin to have that feel like you have on your on-premise where, okay, I have control, I have full visibility, I have what I need. So obviously that centralization is going to be key to everything we're doing moving forward. So you do all that, what do you do next? Before you start moving people onto the cloud, we want to shift left that mentality of assessment. You should even assess your control tower, right? Anytime you deploy anything, you want to assess it. And there's a couple ways to assess it. But we're going to start by assessing what you've deployed. And how do you do that? There's a number of ways to do that. One of our favorites, and one of the tools we actually lead with in ProServe, is a free tool called Prowler. Prowler is external, it's open source, it's flexible, gives you a great snapshot and baseline, and right away, and it's super deployable, right? It's very flexible to multi-accounts, scales, it does all those things that we're looking for. But it also allows you to do a third party, because not everybody wants AWS to tell you how secure we are, right? You might want a third party to come and look at. We totally understand that. Prowler is a great way to bring in a third party view on AWS to say, hey, how is this looking from a security standpoint? But from an assessment standpoint, that's your crawl, right? But assess becomes the most continuous process, right? We want to get to that kind of DevSecOps. So you want to always assess from here on out. And you want to continue to mature your assessment process till it becomes a run process. And there's a few ways to do that. Security Hub links in really well with Control Tower and gives you kind of that automated assessment and visibility. It's kind of the unified dashboard, continuous assessment. You can see your movement. However, again, if you want a third-party tool and you don't want to spend a bunch of money, but you want something that works really well, Prowler Pro is available that does some of the same things. So you're gonna eventually want to mature past that snapshot into a continuous assessment so that you can see how you're progressing. So we've gotten through the crawl phase finally, right? We've built the baseline. We're finally ready to start thinking about what would it look like to get operational loads into the cloud. And that's our operationalize. I will be honest with you customers. This is, if you don't take anything away from this talk, this is where you want to live. This is the hard part of the cloud. We all know it's people, process, and technology. But in the cloud, that becomes infinitely more important, that you find that alignment, because your processes are going to be different in the cloud. Your people are going to need upskilled in this new technology. And you're going to have to figure out the right combination of cloud native tools, of your current on-site tools, or some kind of hybrid tools, right, that you're going to run in both. And this process is what's going to lead to success. We love the cloud adoption framework, the way that lays that out. Again, that's also the same framework that you're probably going to be seeing your cloud experts using, whoever's driving cloud in your environment, and it's going to keep you aligned there. But it's a great way to look through and say, okay, how am I addressing my governance? How am I addressing my operations? How am I making sure what I have on the on-premise correctly translates to the cloud, and I check all my boxes if you're control-based or you're a risk manager, right? I do want to talk about some expected outcomes, because there are some different people, process, technology outcomes in the cloud than you have on-premise. One of them is a DevOps pipeline, right? You're going to want a DevOps pipeline with some kind of integrated security tool. Maybe your application teams have that on site. Hopefully they do. But that might not be a process integrated into how you roll out infrastructure. At least I never put my Cisco gear in a pipeline before, right? But everything, infrastructure is code. So now everything you used to do with that big old network box, you're now doing in code, and you're going to want to put that through a pipeline. You're going to want to scan it. Asset management in the cloud is strongly based on a concept called tagging. And you're going to want to figure out, how am I going to do asset management in the cloud? Because they're not very static in the cloud. The cloud is very dynamic. So you're going to want an asset management strategy that's very dynamic, that matches that cloud movement. And we're all security professionals, right? So you're like, how do I get those alerts from the cloud to my on-site SOC and SIEM, right? Because we have to be able to do that. Not only do we have to get those alerts there, but we have to have those people know how to ingest those alerts and then respond to those alerts, because responding to a cloud alert is quite a bit different than on-site, right? Maybe it's the same if you're running a Windows container or EC2 instance and it's still Windows, but as soon as you abstract from that, everything changes. Also, cloud vulnerability management is a little bit different, right? Because now we're assessing that whole infrastructure's code layer that you weren't looking at on site. And so you have your normal vulnerability management, but also you have this kind of new concept of this cloud posture management, which we touched on a little bit with Prowler and Security Hub. Last, and I'll keep on hitting on this, cloud security training. You have to train your people in cloud. It's really not fair to throw them in the cloud and say, go figure it out. We provide a lot of training resources. A lot of them are free, but we all work in this crazy world. You're going to have to carve out time for people to actually get the training, right? And that, I just want to double click on that, because that is so, so important. And that's one of the pieces is really missed in this tooling and process operationalizing, is getting people comfortable and giving them the time to ramp up to be able to do this on top of all their other duties, right? So now what, right? We've got these expected outcomes. I'm going to give you a cheat key. This is the first time I'm going to throw you into the color map here, but I'm going to tell you, hey, what's the cheat key? what tool should I first deploy to get myself started on this process, right? And for your DevSecOps pipeline, you want a static code analyzer. That's something that's going to sit in the pipeline itself and analyze code. Hopefully you're delivering in CloudFormation, great IAC solution that we like to offer. There's a lot of other ones, but CFN-NAG is a great tool for looking at static code for infrastructure in the cloud, specifically CloudFormation. But no matter what one you choose, they have their own linter and scanning tool. So go get that one and put it in your pipeline, right? It doesn't matter what tools you use, it matters that you have those controls in place. Tagging and asset management, you're gonna wanna understand how to use AWS Config and start pulling those data, pulling those changes. For your SIM integration, okay, this is the big easy win, right? If you're trying to figure out what's the very first thing I do in the cloud, you've built this control tower, you enable guard duty, it enables everywhere. It's practically free IDS in the cloud, right? You send that off to your SIM, you've got your first level monitoring solved in the cloud. So guard duty, it's the first thing we always tell people to turn on. You're gonna get immediate value right away. It's gonna come in an IDS SIM looking alerts. Your security team is gonna be able to pretty quickly decipher. For your incident response program, we really recommend you train your incident responders on detective. You point it at some logs, you start pivoting. You don't have to have it in a SIM. You can leave it in the cloud, pivot around, and do the incident response right there on the spot. Really powerful tool, especially for those of you that don't want to backhaul all of your logs. Maybe you only want to send certain logs back to your on-site tools. This is a great way to investigate the logs that you don't send back. From a vulnerability management perspective, hopefully you've heard about this more than once today, but Amazon Inspector, great tool, works with containers, which I think is what everybody's asking right now. So yes, it does. That's where you want to start with your vulnerability management. And for your posture management, Security Hub. So there's your quick check list plus your CF-NAG, which is one of our other partners that's free, is our link there. But this is where you start, right? For those of you like the practical, give me the secret key, that's it. So next, and you don't need to read all these because that's not the detail. The idea is you've got to get to an agile process. It's impossible to keep up in the cloud. If you have a change management process that only gives you one window every quarter or every year, that's not going to work in the cloud, right? You're going to have to figure out how do we move our cloud operations to an agile process, which means we're probably on a 2-week change cycle. You have some kind of planned 2-week change cycle. Hopefully you have broken into dev and test before you get into production and you can roll through some of these things. But we really encourage you, figure out how to implement, start experimenting and iterating on agile in your environments. And the first piece of that is you're gonna start specializing. These categories are actually defined in CAF 3.0, so that's why I pulled them for them if you're wondering. But you wanna start breaking out into these swim lanes. And there's a few reasons that we wanna do that. One is you wanna get innovators in the space. Because if you're gonna benefit from the cloud, it's because you're being dynamic and you're innovating. And so you wanna get those smart architects you have, those engineers that love to come up with new ideas, you find their track and you put them in it, you train them up, you let them learn, and you let them start building out ideas and implementing quickly. Part of what we talk about in Agile is fail fast. Do a change, test it out, see if it works. If it doesn't, no big deal. Pull it back out, figure out what went wrong, figure out if you're doing the right thing, try it again. And so you wanna get teams working in this kind of cycle. And this is what's gonna help you keep up with the business, because unfortunately the business is already moving this fast, and us as security professionals, we're still catching up. At least I still feel like I am. The other piece is ultimately, you don't want a cloud security team and an on-site operations security team. I promise you, if that's the model you have to go, that's fine, it's really hard. You want to start building out these because hopefully these look familiar to with some of the teams that you could realign them to on site. You want your incident responder to be comfortable responding on site or in the cloud, right? And you're gonna wanna train those people. And that's the next piece is now once I break into these, training becomes a little bit easier, right? So again, not going to a catalog of, here, 700 free hours of training, go. You can say, listen, I want you to drill down. I want you to understand incident response in the cloud, and I want you to know detective. And you have a whole set of skilled people that say, yes, I don't know much about the cloud, but I know how to get in there. I know how to pivot. I know how to find the data I need. And I know how to do the things I do in my processes today. The next thing about the Agile process is it allows people to think big. They can start saying, well, what if? Where's the roadmap we could go? What if we could address this gap? And you're gonna see a shift in teams as you create this backlog of what ifs that we call user stories, right? Or roadmaps. And you can begin to have that gap where we're so used to buying tools that this is the way the tool works. And when you get to the end of that, either buy a new tool or change it manual. The cloud doesn't work that way. There is no start and end of tools in the cloud. And so you can expand that with all kinds of different strategies, but keep that in mind. There's no longer these static end pieces of the tools you're using. And so you need teams that can think outside of those bounds. So again, I'm going to combine those two slides and talk about putting some of these magic keys into these swim lanes. You can see they start to line. There's some obvious first steps for these teams as they implement these pieces. And you're probably thinking, oh, great, now I got 7 teams going 7 different directions, doing 7 things. So how do I bring that all together? I'm glad you asked. Security Hub. So Security Hub integrates with all these components, brings it into that kind of unified dashboard, and allows you to see, hey, how are my teams progressing? Where do we have gaps? Who should I be going back to? Okay, this is an infrastructure issue. I probably need to be taking this back to the infrastructure team. Okay, it looks like our application security is falling behind. Let's go to them and talk. So that unified dashboard gives you kind of the updates and allows the teams to iterate in place. And it's already built to integrate with all these services. Even if it doesn't, we integrate with a lot of third parties. Prowler, CFN NAG, those both feed directly into Security Hub. So we have lots and lots of partner integrations, I think 65 at last count. But you run to that list, you look up those partner integrations, which by the way is at that key at the top, and you go, well, shoot, my partner isn't in there. It really doesn't matter. This is the cloud, right? We provide APIs, CLIs that you can go into and program, but you can also export and input findings based on our standing finding format. So we have a way to trade data between these platforms that's predefined. It's really easy to integrate with, and you can begin to get, at least in the cloud, that single pane of glass that we're all chasing, right? So I can't talk about it without giving you a quick picture to think through here, right? So this is Security Hub. This is a high-level picture, but we're measuring, okay, how am I doing against whatever frameworks are important to me? And continuously assess against those. Some of those frameworks that I highly recommend is the AWS Foundational Best Practices. It's a great framework to measure against where we say, hey, you probably should be doing these things in the cloud, right? These are the basics. So that's the top one I would recommend, but you can also map it to whatever business things you have. If it's PCI, if it's CIS, or you can even build your own and import your own. It gives you that centralized management. And one of the things I wanted to point out here too is you see these colors down here. It might be hard to see exactly those. That's telling you what you look like by region. We can also break that out by what you look like by tag. So those of you that are CISOs and trying to push security down, right? Now you can start tagging a business and you can start scoring your business. And you can say, hey, this business is doing great in this cloud. This one's struggling. I need to work on some training. I need to work on some education. I need to start having those discussions, right? So it begins to pinpoint regions you have risk in, businesses you have risk in, and you can kind of get that. But not just that, then you can also help accelerate some of the secure DevOps. So you deploy that, I pull up Security Hub, and I see, okay, your score went down. But you, even though I have this centralized view, you and your account as the application team go into Security Hub, pull it up and go, oh, wow, that thing that just went through the pipeline turned everything red. We probably should back that one out and go ask the security team what we did wrong, right? And that's what we want to see is those quick iterations and experimenting. Okay, yeah, maybe our linter wasn't working in the pipeline, something. Let's pull that out and look back. So you get that pushing security down to the people that are actually doing the work. Which, believe it or not, developers actually like feedback when it's not, oh, sorry, I'm not going to approve your thing by the deadline, right? If you can give them in the moment, oh, I just got done coding, I pushed it out, I have these errors in my code and I have these errors on Security Hub, yeah, I can go fix all those and then run it back through. So it fits their model and it's a lot more comfortable and allows them to iterate quickly. So with that, getting to the tuning part, we have some very specific examples. And so I'd like to welcome to the stage Justin, my colleague, and he's going to take you through some of those deep dives on the tuning.
All right. Thanks, Chad, so much. All right. So my name is Justin Cordial. I'm a security consultant with AWS Professional Services. So Chad's given us a bunch of examples, models, frameworks, people, and processes that we can follow. And now we're going to spend a few slides kind of diving a little bit deeper into some of that and see what that looks like maybe at a practical level. All right, we're going to start kind of the theme of the talk as well, business objectives. So we want to increase visibility and speed of detection for cloud incidents or security events, maybe even a production incident. So what does something like that look like? What are tools that are going to help us increase that visibility? So AWS Assisted Log Enabler is an open source tool that we have out there for customers to use, and it is one of the best ways to increase visibility quickly. One of the things I love about this tool, it is single account or multi-account, and it can also be used as a baseline. So if you're unsure about where you're at, it has dry run features that you can turn on. So you could say, I just want to look at this one account, we're having some weird issues in it, I'm not sure if I have all my logging turned on, let's run a dry run first and see what we look like. And you can see what services you do or don't have on. The teams at AWS that respond to security events love this tool because we go to a customer sometimes and visibility isn't there. We don't have all that we need. You can also select specific services. So if you look at this here, it'll check for CloudTrail, it'll look at your DNS query logs. If those aren't on, it'll turn those on. If you don't have your VPC flow logs, it'll turn it on, and it'll do it across all regions as well, which can be really great. If you have EKS as well, it's another service that'll turn on. And the best part about it is if you don't want to turn all those on, maybe you know you've got your CloudTrail figured out, you can exclude that and turn on all the others. Probably my most favorite part of this is that you can throttle it up or down. So after you've done your dry run, maybe you go and you want to turn stuff on, you've gotten through your event and you realize, I don't need my VPC flow logs on all the time. You can quickly go back and disable all that's been deployed. So you can use this as a triage tool as well. Really, really great. Definitely a hidden gem. All right, now we're going to pivot over to some IAM. So we have our business outcome here, our business objective. We want to enable external connections, speed of provisioning of new users, and we want to make sure we can automate that visibility and kind of maybe throw in some least privilege there as well, right? So if you've been to any talks this week, you've probably heard of IAM Access Analyzer. This is a fantastic tool. So kind of ask a question here. Show of hands, how many people are currently using Access Analyzer or have it turned on? Okay, small portion of the audience, 5 or 6. So this is one of those tools that I would highly, highly recommend. Go grab this, turn it on at the account level and at the organizational level. It will provide a lot of findings. Those findings can be really invaluable. One of the things it does is identify resources in your organization and accounts that are shared with an external entity. So this might be public S3 buckets. This might be a KMS key that is shared with another account. This might be a role that is shared with another account, or maybe even an external account. So if you maybe have a third-party vendor, you could start to create a trusted list of vendors that you are allowing to assume that role. Maybe there's a vendor that you shouldn't have in there or another account that you shouldn't have in there. Really, really great visibility into identifying resources that are outside of your organization's control or an account's control and starting to address those. And it'll spin all those up into a findings for you. One of the lesser known features of it, I think that is really great as well, it'll validate IAM policies. So if you've been in the console, you might have seen this where you throw in some of the policies that you're creating and it'll give you little security warnings, general warnings, other little guidance like that. That is really, really great, and it also has an API. So like Chad was talking about earlier in the talk with the DevOps pipeline, you can integrate that and it will actually check in the pipeline with the API and provide you some of those findings so that your developers can, again, shift left with how you're doing your IAM policies when you write them. And then it also does a generation of policies for you. In the console, this is located when you go to the roles. You can actually scroll all the way down and there'll be an option to generate a policy. This also has an API as well. What I love about this part, and we're going to dive a little bit deeper, is you can generate these policies and start to help you on that least privilege journey, which is, oftentimes we find a maximum effort. So we'll kind of dive into one of those examples here. These are really simplified policies, and then we'll do another one here right after this. It'll be a more deeper policy. So we have a policy that gives us full access to S3 and full access to all storage. No one's ever seen anyone write those policies, right? All right, so we're gonna run Access Analyzer, and this leverages CloudTrail logs, and we're gonna say, hey, look at the last 90 days. What did this role do in the last 90 days? What kind of activity took place? What we end up finding is, wow, we didn't need all of that access. All that was really used was some putting items into storage, some getting items, some list, and look at that, it only accessed one bucket. It didn't access all of them. So the same thing here. Let's look at an EC2 server policy. So we're gonna write a policy that says you can start EC2 instances, you can stop them, you can terminate them, you can create them, and we're gonna apply it to all our EC2 instances. Again, another one of those things never happens, right? So let's throw Access Analyzer against that and look at what we come out with. We see that they haven't terminated instances, so we can take that out of their permissions. We see that they haven't really created any instances either. And the policy doesn't need to apply to all our EC2 instances. It only needs to apply to these couple of servers here that we've identified. And then all this is outputted as code. So let's see what that looks like. So we have an Amazon S3 bucket storage policy here. And on the right-hand side is what this looks like in the console or as code. So we have the S3 effect at the top. It says allow. We have an action with an S3 star. And that says all API actions for S3, right? Very over-permissioned. And we have resource, S3, and then a star there at the very end as well. So now we're talking about all S3 buckets, over-provisioned. We run the trail, and this is what that policy ends up looking like at the end. So we have a couple of actions, and we've scoped it down to that storage role. Now, this isn't gonna do it all for you, but it will get you really, really close and get you on that journey towards least privilege, where you have the framework of something that you can start to put in the resources there and start to build out that least privilege. And I also want to take note here that upper right there is also a Security Hub integration. So those findings that we talked about in the first slide as well, those are a great, great way to integrate those into this overall framework for what you're deploying. All right, so we've completed the walk portion of our slides. We've seen some deep dive examples. I'm gonna hand this off to Chad. We'll talk about how we can run.
All right, thank you, Justin. So we're finally there. We're finally to the run phase. Everyone hearing me okay? All right, finally to the run phase, right? What does that look like? You saw the tuning, right? You've got the agile process. You're starting to get the tuning. So let's go back. You're going through that maturing, you're tuning, you're sending it all to AWS Security Hub. The key of optimizing is that thinking out of the box now. Now we're gonna say, how do I start changing my security operations so that I automate those repetitive actions that I don't need people doing, so I can have those high value people doing the stuff only humans can do, right? And so Security Hub becomes kind of our magical integration point. It is automation hub. So again, there's a number of functions that we pull out of Security Hub, but one of them is these automations. Security Hub can trigger actions in Amazon CloudWatch, and CloudWatch can then kick off actions across our stack. So I'm gonna kind of walk through maybe some of the typical things we see as security professionals in our security process, right? First of all, we can forward things to Splunk that will immediately say, oh, yeah, that's questionable activity. Maybe I even have other logs I've correlated with what I got from Security Hub. But we started that first automation. So rather than someone looking at Security Hub, calling the incident team, going, oh, is this a problem? Let's start by pushing it there. So we push it out to Splunk. Next, we use a step function, right? And we're gonna use the step function to say, yeah, you know what? SIM team said that was bad. They want us to go ahead and take action. We're gonna collect logs and revoke access. We're gonna quarantine. We're gonna take forensic snapshots, and we're gonna replace that server with the golden image that we took yesterday. So suddenly, we've kicked off two functions. One that collected all the logs for us, then a second one that quarantined that EC2 instance for us, took a forensic snapshot, put a new server out there that's now fully functioning with our gold image, and we still haven't had a person involved yet, right? The SIM person saw it, clicked the button, said, yeah, that's a real problem, boom, goes back to Security Hub, and you automated all these actions. Then, right, because we're security people, we're gonna go full cycle, like, oh gosh, if that EC2 instance went down with that vulnerability, I bet we have this problem somewhere else. So now I'm gonna kick off a Lambda that'll kick off Systems Manager that goes and remediates and patches that issue throughout the rest of our environment. But we're security people, so we don't trust that. So we'll go ahead and kick off an SQS function that'll fire off our Rapid7 scanner to go scan those same machines to validate that yes, indeed, they are secure. Now, potentially, in your first half hour or your first hour update to the, oh my gosh, what happened scenario, you could say, yeah, we're all the way down to it's isolated and someone's doing forensics analysis on it. It's already been contained. It's already been fixed across environment. And we validated that that's true. And here's the data, right? That's where we want to go. That's where we want to help you as security professionals so that we only have these key touch points, right? Your SOC team that says, yeah, that is a real risk. Your forensics person that's gonna go in and look at this instance after it's been taken out. But in the meantime, the business impact here is hopefully nothing, right? Can you imagine being able to take an image, isolate something, put it back in production with near instantaneous, no impact to the business? If you're in a load balance group, you could do that with zero interruption, right? So if you're in an auto scale load balancing group, so there's some things in the architecture that could make this 100% resilient. The business wouldn't even know that web server got compromised. You have all your forensics and logs, and you're ready to go with that deeply skilled analyst. So that's the dream, right? That's where we're trying to go. That's the kind of think big we're trying to get to, is how we get there. And you may get there and say, well, let's back up. Let's go back to the plan and go, let's take a risk-based approach now. See if there's any things we missed that we could drive down risk. Let's go back and reference that architecture diagram. Figure out if there's any new things that AWS is doing that we should be incorporating into this. And so that's how the process is gonna work, right? We're gonna go back to that cycle, our planning, our building, assessing, managing, maturing, optimizing. And you'll go back through the cycle a lot because your business is going to do things like move databases to the cloud, and you're going to figure that out. And then they're going, oh, now I got my databases in the cloud. I should suck all the data out of that and jump into a giant data lake. And you're going to be like, oh my gosh, you're going to put all our data in one lake, right? And you're going to have to go back, and we have security best practices for how you secure a data lake. And you're going to have to go through this process again about how to put it in. And you're going to just keep seeing that, right? We're going to be pushing the security bounds. We're going to be pushing the IT bounds. And you're going to have to continue to go through this process as more and more stuff move into IoT is another one, right? Oh, we're going to deploy worldwide IoT, and every customer is going to have a DICE calling back to us. How do I secure that? You'll go back through this process. You'll pull our blueprints. It'll look very similar. No matter what are these new cutting edge technologies, this process will continue to work and fit into the framework that AWS has designed. So again, what does that really look like? We started by crawling, right? And we took our time crawling to make sure we set that correct foundation, that we knew what our plan was. And we decided, yeah, we're going for risk reduction, right? The CISO says he's not going to prove critical workloads until we prove risk reduction. I'm going straight to my risk reduction model. I'm going to drive down my risk. Say, we're going to use a defined best practice architecture. We're going to do that. We're going to be able to show that to our compliance teams to say, hey, this aligns with best practice industry standard for cloud and how we're providing the framework that every auditor who audits cloud should recognize, right? So easy recognition there, driving down the risk. Then be able to come back and say, yeah, and we're measuring that, right? We've put in this assessment. We've shifted our assessment left. It's continuous assessment. We're driving that assessment all the way down to the developers so that they can see their stuff and fix their stuff in real time versus me chasing them down, right? And they're like, okay, now I think we have it down. Let's start walking, right? Let's take those first steps. Let's figure out how we put together those teams. Let's go back and look at our policy and make sure it addresses both premise on cloud. Let's go rebuild our incident response playbooks to make sure we have ransomware on site and ransomware in cloud. We have all the right scenarios built out, which, by the way, really fun. We do incident response tabletop exercises with our customers. Great way to build out a playbook and just test some of that thinking. Because again, we're trying to get those people trained and thinking of new processes. So many tools that we can offer in this space, as well as a lot of our partners, but I encourage you to take advantage of those. Next, we're gonna have to make that culture shift to agile philosophy. We're gonna have to figure out the right way to break down and align the teams, figure out how we can deliver in 2-week cycles, and start actually taking advantage of the benefits of the cloud, right? Because if you stay in your old change management model, you're never gonna get the advantage of the cloud. You're probably wasting your money if I'm being honest, right? So figure out, how do I take advantage of the innovation to keep up with the business in the cloud? And then you're ready to run. And that means now I get to think big. Now I get to do the cool things. Now I get to come to reInvent and collect all those pieces and say, yeah, I do want to do that automated isolation. I do want to put in those run books and start putting in those pieces so that your people get to do what they're best at and what they're highly skilled at. And then you fly. It's a flywheel. So around and around you go, right? So that's our presentation today. As promised, the slide deck will include all the references. We still stuck with the crawl model. These are all the things from the crawl plus a couple extras that I threw in there. Your walk model, as well as, again, the call out to Prowler. By the way, I believe we have the builder of Prowler, Tony Lufente, in the audience here. So Tony, thanks for coming. Good to have you. Transition to walk, right? The CAF framework, the log enabler, some of the great stuff that Justin threw out there. You got the links for that, as well as the run, right? What do all those little pieces look like? How do I enable all those pieces and run? These are consistently updated, right? Because we as consultants, we build something really cool like this. We want to tell everybody the cool thing we built. We'll publish it out on a blog and you'll see it. A great example is if you're looking at ransomware and you want security best practices and understanding how that works with backup and AWS backup on-premise, one of our top blogs is written by someone on my team. Go check it out. 10 best practices for security and ransomware. Again, I'm Chad Lawrence. This is Justin. Thank you for coming. We will be out there eating lunch. You're welcome to sit down with us. We're happy to talk with you. We do ask, open the mobile app, put in the survey. We are a metrics-driven company at AWS. We really care about this stuff. We really pay attention. We want to get better as speakers. We want to be better as we deliver content to you. So please let us know how we did, and we really appreciate it. Thank you, everybody, for coming.